This was me in college. I was 6'6", around 290 pounds, played offensive line and training at a pretty high level. And this was me years later, weighing more than 430 pounds. The hardest part to admit about any of this is that I had already turned my health around more than once. At 29 years old, I was diagnosed as a diabetic, and I was put on insulin and metformin, changed how I ate, lost weight, improved my health, and eventually came off both medications without any medical oversight. Then over time, I slowly gained the weight back and ended up facing bad blood work all over again. I know this is where that road went, and I kept walking down it anyway. I really wish I could blame anybody, blame that one coach, bad piece of nutrition advice, or just a terrible decision, but the truth is more complicated than that. This happened gradually through years of doing the wrong things consistently. And to explain how I got here, I kind of have to go back to when I was in high school. I was already over 300 pounds as a freshman in high school, so struggling with my weight is not something that suddenly began when I became an adult. Over one summer, I had lost 80 pounds. So my freshman year in high school, I was 300, and my sophomore, I was 220 pounds. After that, I started lifting, building muscle, and becoming more athletic. That experience taught me something important. It showed me that when I was focused, I could make dramatic changes in my body. But looking back, what I learned was how to attack a goal. I didn't really learn how to build a lifestyle to keep me healthy over the next 20 or 30 years. That weight loss eventually helped me go from a 300-pound freshman to playing college football. After high school, I played 2 years of college football as an offensive lineman, not the stereotypical trope. I was still a big guy, usually somewhere between about 280 to 300 pounds, but I was training as an athlete, and I was roughly about 15% body fat. I was lifting, practicing, conditioning, and working out most every single day, and putting my body through a lot. So never have I been a small person, but before I was strong, I was active, and I was in really good shape. Because of that workload, I could eat a lot of food. I had to eat a lot of food to maintain that. Eating as a 290-pound offensive lineman made sense when I was living like a 290-pound offensive lineman. The problem started when the athletic lifestyle ended, but the athletic eating didn't. And then one piece of nutrition advice that I received from a coach during those years was that eating fat made you fat. So I had focused exclusively on eating protein and carbohydrates and tried to avoid all dietary fat. At the time, it didn't really seem like terrible advice. I was training hard enough to burn through the enormous amount of energy that I was eating. To be clear, I don't blame the one coach for eventually reaching 430 pounds. I made the choices that followed. The biggest mistake was carrying the same eating habits and the same beliefs into a completely different lifestyle. Once football ended, my activity level dropped dramatically, as you would imagine, but my appetite and portion sizes did not. I was no longer practicing, conditioning, lifting, at that level every single day. But I kept eating like it. Adult life became more sedentary. There was a lot more sitting, a lot more work, fewer reasons to move, but I was still eating the same like I did when I was actively training for, college sports. And it's kind of hard to shift your mindset from being the athletic big guy to being the sedentary, turning tubby guy. The weight didn't show up overnight. It came slowly. I could keep telling myself that I was still tall, still naturally big, still carry the weight better than somebody shorter than me might, and I kept telling myself I'll just fix it later. I didn't gain the 150 pounds in one day. I gained it through thousands of ordinary days that really didn't seem all that important at the time. Eventually, my health forced me to stop pretending that it was only about the way that I looked. At 29 years old, I was diagnosed as diabetic. I was put on insulin and metformin. The message I took away from this is that I should expect to be on those medications for the rest of my life, and that kind of pissed me off. It made me scared, it made me frustrated. I wanted to know whether there was something that I could do to change the outcome instead of simply accepting that it was permanent. The lady that I talked to actually told me, no, you'll be on this medication forever. In fact, you're probably going to be on more medications as time goes on because being diabetic is rough. You're going to get depressed. You're going to get anxious. So we'll have to give you more medications to, augment those. The stuff that she was going over still rubs me wrong to this day. Instead of giving me the advice that I had to go and learn myself, it was, hey, you're going to want to eat cake, so here's the kind of cake, and here's how you should do it to, not affect your diabetes as much. And I get it. Most people, they might not make the change. They might want to keep doing this stuff. They may enjoy their life, and who am I to tell somebody how to live? But when I asked, hey, can I get off this stuff? And the answer was a firm no. There was no other alternative. You're going to be on it forever. It just, like I said, it just pissed me off. So I changed how I ate. I started looking into a lot of this stuff and doing some research. And I started to lose weight, and I watched my health improve. Eventually, 3 months after getting started, I was able to get off the insulin. 3 months after that, I was able to get off the metformin completely. I got my blood work, my A1C. It was under 5, and I was doing pretty great. I was, was significantly healthier. I felt better. Everything was going really, really smooth. And I'm not telling anybody watching this that what I did, because I went keto and started eating very low carb, is the way that's going to help them. This is all anecdotal, so don't, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I'm only sharing this because it's exactly what happened in my situation, and it's what I changed that eventually worked for me. And that turnaround proved that I could improve my health, but I confused getting better with getting permanently fixed. Once the immediate danger felt like it was gone, the urgency really disappeared too. I kind of took my foot off the pedal a little bit, and I kind of eased back into the ways that I had been up until that point. I didn't wake up one morning and decide that I wanted to become unhealthy again. I just started doing the little things that lead to that. One cheat meal turned into a cheat day, turned into a cheat weekend, and a bad weekend became a bad month. The habits that had helped me slowly disappeared, and the old habits slowly became the normal again. That's when I started a Big Guy Grind. I started it because I wanted accountability. I wanted to document myself getting healthier. I wanted to see it, not just remember it. I made progress, and the channel helped me for a good long while. Then I fell from the routine again, from posting and from sharing, and I told myself, I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. I ended up being gone for about 9 months. During that time, I allowed the weight and the bad habits to keep coming back. And the hardest part about it was that I knew that it could happen. I had already experienced diabetes. I had already lost the weight. I had already improved my health. So knowledge definitely wasn't my problem. Consistency was. Then, on my comeback here, then I received my new blood work, and it felt like I was right back to where I had started. My A1C was around 9, and my triglycerides were over 1,400. Seeing those numbers was frustrating because I had already proven that my health could improve. I had also proven that it could get worse again if I stopped taking care of myself. So I have 150 pounds that I want to lose, but this isn't about, seeing a smaller number on the scale. The scale really only tells me how heavy I am. My blood work tells me my habits and what's happening inside of my body. That's why the real scoreboard for this journey is what happens when I repeat those tests. And as of today, I'm switching over to more of a carnivore diet because it's the way of eating that I personally feel the best at. Since I started this up again, I think we're like 23 days in, I think. Just eating keto has really, really helped me feel significantly better. My sleep's improved. I've had less anxiety, and I've, been losing weight. The problem is, it might be the fiber, it might be, I might have an intolerance or two to a vegetable that I'm not sure about. I just kind of feel bloated and sluggish after I eat that I don't really experience when I'm eating the carnivore diet. So I'm going to be transitioning to carnivore again. Like I said, it's anecdotal. I know it. It just makes me feel the best. So that's what's worked for me in the past. That's what's going to work for me again. It's just the consistency that I really need to focus on. Another thing is I removed all alcohol from this, at least until I get my blood work done. Not that I was ever a heavy drinker in the first place. It's just triglycerides. Alcohol plays havoc on them. So trying to get them as low as possible, remove that. So wanted to mention that as well. I'm going to be doing my push-ups and squats every day. I'm going to be continuing that. Want to get more steps in every day and start breaking up my day with walking. My job involves a lot of sitting here, looking at this camera and talking. So not the most active lifestyle, so I'm going to be getting some more steps in throughout the day. Not going to probably go as crazy as I did when I first started doing this, just because of the time factor, but that's definitely going to be a bigger part of my overall health and improvement is going to be getting those more active during the day. And then again, I think the biggest thing about the Big Guy Grind before is just doing it publicly. I'm not the only one out here doing this. Nothing that I say in any of these videos is earth-shattering. It's unique in the sense that it happened to me and it's my story, but nothing that I'm going to tell you is going to be something that you don't know or haven't seen 1,000 times, because by far I am not the only one going through this. And there's so many of us that have these struggles, that talk about them, that share our journeys, and there's so many inspiring people out there doing it that it would be impossible to talk about something that you haven't heard about. But there's something that I've learned, and it's, even if you've heard it a million times, just hearing it the right way from somebody at the right time can make it spark for you. So if I can add any value to that, then I'm happy to do it. But more selfishly, this is a way for me to keep accountable. The biggest thing is consistency, and this helps with that. The biggest goal with a lot of these changes is that I don't need a plan that works when I'm highly motivated, because I'm not going to be highly motivated forever. I need one that's simple enough that I can stick to it on my worst days. Because the biggest lesson that I've learned over the years of struggling through this is my story is not really about one diet or one workout. Consistency is both my strongest weapon and my biggest enemy. It doesn't care which direction it's driving me, it's just taking me somewhere. It takes whatever that I repeatedly do and multiplies it. Consistently eating more than I needed, moving less, and telling myself I would start later helped take me from a college athlete to more than 430 pounds. But the opposite is also true. Consistently making better food choices, moving every day, and returning to a plan after a setback can move in the right direction. You don't destroy your health in one day. You do it slowly by making the wrong choices often enough. So knowing that that's the way that I got here, it just makes sense that that's the same way that I'm going to claw my way back out. I've had to start over more than once, and I'm not proud of every part of this story, but I would rather be the guy who had to start over 10 times than the guy who finally decided to stop trying. Starting over doesn't erase the mistakes that I made. It means that those mistakes do not get it right the ending. So if you're seeing this, maybe you're already working through your own health journey. Maybe you need to know where to start, but you're afraid to take that first step. Maybe you've fallen before. Maybe you've done exactly what I've had and fallen off the wagon, been drugged behind the wagon, had it back up over you, feel miserable afterwards. Or maybe you've already reached your goal and you're now trying to maintain it. So wherever you are in your journey, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and joined me. None of us are going through it alone. We're all going to have our bad days. We're all going to stumble. What matters is when you fall, you get back up and keep moving. Because we may all feel alone whenever we fall and we stumble, but we don't have to get back up alone.